Welcome to another edition of Disability and You. I'm Ganesh Singh. On this edition, my focus will be on mental health. Recently, we observed World Mental Health Day under the theme Mental Health at Work. It was a theme coined by the World Health Organization to raise awareness on the importance of maintaining a good work life balance and also facilitate within the workplace good mental health practices. With me to discuss this topic is Dr. Dheeraj Bansal, the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine at Texila American University. And he's no stranger to these studios because he's been on the program on a number of occasions previously. So I would say he's a friend of Disability and You. Dr. Bansal, welcome once again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ganesh. My pleasure to be here with you once again.
Excellent. Let's first start the discussion by deconstructing the theme that was coined for this year, mental health at work. Break that down for us and explain why it is important.
Well, let us start with the very basics, Mr. Ganesh. First of all, an understanding of what is mental health. And the easiest and the most common definition used is complete psychological, emotional, and social well-being.
Mhm.
Now, if you look at each one of the three components, emotions are these feelings, it could be fear, it could be sadness, it could be happiness. These are all emotions. When these emotions get manifested in a certain way, we call them psychology. Or if these emotions make a person behave a certain way, it's called psychology. And of course, social is the interaction of an individual with the people around that particular individual. How are they interacting with them? Are they contributing to the society? Do they feel that I have my own place in the society and I have my own recognition and value? So a person who has all these three components in place is considered mentally healthy.
Mhm.
A mentally healthy people can be of most use to himself and to the society. At workplace, everybody is going to work
Yes.
and everybody is trying to do their best. And it's very easily understandable that a person who is mentally healthy is definitely going to perform better, be of more use, and be more productive at workplace.
And that's
Hence,
proven by many research.
many researches,
Mhm.
and hence mental health at workplace is such an important issue for all of us.
Mhm. But one of the things that research again has found is that for many decades, this aspect um, has been neglected within the work environment. Limited or no measures were put in place to maintain um, good mental well-being among members of
Mhm.
staff and team members. But things have changed of recent. But what do you think are some of the measures that can be put in place to ensure that your team members, the people that work for you, the people that needs to be productive, can have a healthy
Environment.
environment to working and they can maintain good mental health?
Well, let me answer the first part of your question first. Why mental health was not given so much emphasis?
Yeah,
If you remember, Mr. Ganesh, in our last talk, I talked about physical health and mental health, the
definitely.
similarities and dissimilarities. Physical health is something very obvious, very visible, and mental health is something is not that visible and not that obvious. That's one of the reasons why mental health was neglected for such a long time.
Hmm.
Second very important reason was the discrimination and stigma that is attached to mental illness, and people did not feel free to talk about their mental health as they freely discuss their physical health. So these were the reasons why mental health was not being talked about. But thankfully, and I'm really grateful to all the people who contributed to it, that mental health has become a much more commonly discussed topic these days. And there has been activities focused on mental well-being at workplace.
Mhm.
Now, to answer the second part of your question, what can be done? First of all, creating a healthy environment at workplace.
And that
Th-
includes.
That includes recognition of everyone, appreciation of everyone who's doing their part, and at the same time, services in place to identify if somebody is not mentally healthy. This third part, I think, is also very important, and is something we really need to work on. If somebody is facing some kind of a mental illness, it could not be because of work, it could be because of home, but you cannot separate the two.
Definitely not.
If
Definitely
somebody
not.
is not having a good environment at home, will come to work mentally unhealthy and will affect his performance at the workplace. So it's important to identify anybody who's having some kind of health issues. At the same time, there should be services available at workplace to address those issues.
Mhm.
For example, if somebody is going to workplace is having some kind of mental health, where would he or she go? Who should he or she talk to? So, creating a positive environment where you appreciate, and do not bring the other person down.
And that would have been my next question is talking about bullyism at work among superiors, because you tend to find that in many, many places of employment, the culture where seniors feel that they can bully the subordinates, their subordinates.
Yes, and that also is the environment that I was talking about, where no one person should feel that he or she has the right to bring the other person down. And there should be accountability of that. And once again, there should be policies in place where if a person is feeling that he is being bullied by a superior, there should be a policy and there should be a process in place where he or she can go and report. And the management should be sensitive enough to do something about it. Maybe talking to that superior, explaining that these kind of behaviors are not acceptable in our workplace. This is all part of creating a mentally healthy environment.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And what about when it's especially small businesses, smaller micro businesses, and you have the bosses, the entrepreneurs, the persons that own that company are the ones that are treating their staff or members of their team in a harsh manner, demean them, as I said earlier, bully. Um, what tip you have for those persons? Because it's common. You hear it all the time, especially with persons who work in the informal sector.
Yeah.
You hear about these things all the time, but
Yes.
people continue to work because they have to.
They have no
to survive.
choice sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what tip you have for those employers?
My first tip would be creating awareness. Many times these people are ignorant that what kind of harm they are doing to the other person's mental health.
Mhm.
And first thing I would say, create an awareness. These small businesses, there should be events where or workshops, call it whatever you want, where you should create awareness about how harmful such kind of behavior could be. And second thing, I would say accountability. There should be some accountability. This is where community and the government come into play. The community should have services available where people who are facing, because obviously it's a small business, there is no other place he or she can report to,
That is true.
because there is only two-person, the boss and this person. So there
Definitely.
should be services available from the government side where this person can say, see, I'm being treated like this. And there should be, some kind of a service available where a government official can talk to this businessman that this is not acceptable what you're doing and this is against human right. Being mentally healthy has to be a human right.
Mhm.
So this is, you are basically violating the person's right by doing this. And so some kind of accountability. So awareness and accountability, I would say, are the two things which can make these things better in a small business kind of a scenario.
And we do have a reporting mechanism within the Ministry of Labor for discrimination within the workplace. I'm not sure, and I can't speak of any level of certainty on the mental health aspect, or if there are any measures in place or mechanism for you to report those cases.
Neither am I, and this is exactly what I'm talking to you. I mean, even if there is a service available, how many people know about it?
Precisely.
And this is where media comes into play, that letting people know that there is a place available if you are being bullied or you are being treated which is affecting your mental health. There is a place. This is the number you call. This is the office you go to. That kind of visibility is needed too.
Mhm. Definitely, and awareness is so important with every area when it comes to mental health within the workplace and mental health as a whole, because it helps to change the perception that people have of mental health, where it's something that has been a taboo subject for decades.
Yes.
A lot of times, it was the stigma was reinforced by colonial era legislation, the attitudes that people have, and again reinforced by media. Now we have a lot of celebrities and others talking about mental health, raising awareness, and is becoming normalized within our society, which is positive.
Yes.
Dr. Mansell, I want to talk about the physical environment within the workplace and how the correlation between the physical environment and having a comfortable physical environment to work in, how that impacts your mental health.
Once again, Mr. Ganesh, I would say that physical and mental are related. What I usually call the mind and body relationship. Mind body relationship. This is a very old concept. This is not something new. In a workplace, if a person who has some kind of disability, for example, and is a challenge for him to get to work every day, challenge for him to get to his workstation, challenge for him to sit and work, these are all challenges that's going to create a kind of mental, I will not call it illness, but I'll call it mental issue for the person.
Definitely.
And
because they have to worry about that all the time.
exactly. So people have to understand a mental issue and mental illness are slightly different. Mental issue, if not taken care of in a limited time period, can convert into mental illness. So the physical environment should be such for anyone, somebody who has some kind of disability, that he or she feels that this environment is cordial for me. He or she does not have to face any challenge. For example, a very common example, somebody who's using wheelchair having a ramp coming up,
Yeah.
right? Or having an elevator or escalator to go to his workstation if he works on second and third floor. Nobody should be told that you cannot join our office because it's on third floor and you cannot climb up the stairs. So that's what I mean by creating a physical environment, accessibility to the restrooms, going to the workplace, mobility around. Limited mobility again has a significant impact on mental health as well.
It does. It does.
But people have to realize these things, and people so easily overlook these things.
We do.
Yeah.
Because we more times than not, we're not in the position. And because we're not in that position, we really don't have an appreciation of the issues that these individuals encounter. Because, an example, you having a disability and needs, and you're required to use public transport in the mornings to get to work. It's a task alone to get a vehicle that will take you in your wheelchair. Then the battle of transferring, because we have very few accessible vehicles. I don't think any that works in the public transportation system. That's a challenge. You're already mentally tired by the time you get to work.
Exactly.
It's a challenge to get in the building in most cases, if you have that opportunity. Somebody probably got to lift the chair up, whatever it is. Another, mentally draining. By the time you get there, while physically you might be okay, mentally you're gone when it comes to work. But even people without disabilities, they need a comfortable space to work in.
Absolutely. So that's what I said. Everybody, in my opinion, has one or other disability.
Yeah.
This is how I look at it. If you look at the definition of disability, it means limiting you in a certain way from performing what you're expected to perform.
Yes.
Everybody, somebody with excessive anger, I would say it's a disability. Anybody with a fear can become a disability for him to going out at the night and work, if somebody is afraid of dark and things like that. So some kind of disability is there in everyone.
Definitely.
So when I say creating a physical environment, it does not necessarily mean persons with disability, but for other people also. Because somebody who does not have any mental issue, if the physical environment is not cordial or is not positive, in other words, can develop a mental issue in that individual.
Hmm.
So creating a favorable physical environment is as important for other individuals as it is for people with disability.
Definitely. And if you want to get the most out of your members or your employees, you need to have that space that they can be productive, they're comfortable, and they can give you maximum.
Exactly. I will give you a very small example. Putting them in isolated rooms versus putting in open area where they can see other.
Hmm.
Well, some jobs might require isolation, but I'm just giving it as an example, where and having uh, right temperature to work at. It's a very simple thing, but can become a very big factor in their performance.
Oh, definitely.
Access to restrooms, things like that. People very easily tend to overlook these very small things, but
Very
they make
small
a big
thing.
difference. Uh, for people with disability, again, awareness amongst the employers to see that I don't have to only think about the person, how the person will get in the office, but also, as you rightly said, how will the person get from his workplace to the office place.
Mhm.
So that awareness again is the key factor for the employees, and the employees have to realize that it is in their benefit if you create a positive environment for people with disability or other people. They are going to work much better, and their productivity is going to be that much more, which is
And
ultimately going to benefit them only.
and there enough empirical evidence to support what you just said there.
Yes,
I'm
whatever I'm saying is all based on evidence. I don't say things as a
definitely.
hypothesis or anything. Yeah.
So it's been proven. Dr. Bansal, before we pause for that break, we were discussing how having that comfortable physical space, not just for persons with disabilities, but other employees, can, one, ensure that they're mentally healthy,
Hmm.
and two, make them more productive.
Absolutely.
I want to first to digress a bit and discuss mental health and young persons with disabilities. It's still related to our topic of mental health within the workplace, but I want to talk about young people with disabilities having to navigate that period of adolescence while having to deal with the issues and the discrimination of being someone living with a disability. What advice you have for those individuals who deal with these things on a daily basis? And before you answer, I can tell you, based on the work that I've done and I do on a regular basis, when you interact with young people with disabilities, many of them have mental health issues
Yes.
because of what they have to deal with. Or how can they deal with this?
Uh, that's a very relevant question, Mr. Ganesh. Let me just start by saying that disability and mental health are intertwined, they go hand in hand. Uh, Disability can affect mental health, mental illness can also manifest as some kind of disability,
Definitely.
something we call in psychiatric language as somatization.
Mhm.
Again, it goes back to mind body relationship, and your mind and your body are interrelated. So it's very easy to comprehend that somebody with disability is at risk of having mental illness. Let me just put it that way.
Mhm.
The focus has to be on youth for very obvious reasons. Youth or adolescence is a transition period. A person goes through, as such, physical and psychological changes,
Yeah.
which sometimes makes these mental aspect of their disability, what they have, much more prominent. And there are numerous studies which have said that mental illness is a problem among people with disability, but especially youth, because of the reasons I just mentioned. Now the question comes, what can be done about it?
Mhm.
I'll quote a very recent study which was conducted in Canada, and they involved youth with disability in an 8 week activity. It was a participatory program where all these youth, they took part in some kind of interactive session where they felt involved, they felt they're interacting with other people. And 2 out of 5 mental illness symptoms such as depression, such as sense of isolation, low self-esteem, just to name a few. So they found every individual up to 2 symptoms went away only by a 8-week program. Hence, one of the most important thing, in my opinion, that can be done for them is participatory activity. Involve them in some kind of an activity where they feel engaged, where they feel they are participating, and that itself will make a big difference in their mental health. Other than that, other things that can be done, of course, we need to train parents and teachers. Who does a adolescent spends maximum time with? Either at the school with teachers or at home with parents. Now, parents as well as teachers need to be trained to identify those emotional outbursts or psychological behavior which might tell them that this child is at a risk of getting some kind of a mental illness if this thing is not identified and intervened on time. So, training the teachers, training the parents, creating awareness among them, and designing participatory activity for youth, I think these are very important factors in taking care of their mental health.
And training the parents is it's very important, giving them the tips on how they can best support their children in navigating that period, but at the same time raising awareness, because many parents are still not on board when it comes to mental health issues.
Yes.
Because if their child is not doing well in school, more times than not, they will take the aggressive approach
Yes.
rather than discussing with that child what might be affecting them. And even if they say that, I'm having these challenges, because of, again, the culture that exists, they would not look at it from that angle. So it comes down back to raising a level of awareness and creating that environment where both parents and children can embrace mental health.
Absolutely. Again, as I just now said, the maximum time spent by a youth or a child is either at school or at home. And it's our responsibility as a society to provide them a favorable, positive environment at school as well as at home. And hence, creating awareness is equally important among teachers as well as among parents. And you very rightly said, parents are not aware, they just look at the grades, and
Yeah.
when the grades are not good, they come hard, and they don't realize that they are doing more harm than good.
Mhm.
And no parent wants to harm their children willingly. It's just that they are not aware that this could be because of a kind of limitation that needs to be addressed in a right way.
Mhm. And what about going back to young persons with disabilities, and let's look at our education system.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about performance. It's all about grades, performing to a certain level. And you, as someone with a disability in that environment where there are certain expectations, whether realistic or unrealistic expectations, you're forced to perform, or else you're seen as being less of an individual, less of a person. However, you're forced to perform in an environment that is not inclusive and accessible.
Mm-hmm.
How do they deal with that? Because you're expected to get 80, 90%, but there are limited or no measures to ensure that you have access to the information as someone with a disability.
It's time that we move from a group approach to an individualistic approach.
Mhm.
Again, we'll keep coming back to creating awareness and training. The school teacher or the person who is interacting with the child with disability has to understand what are the criteria you are setting for that individual.
Mhm.
You should not just judge everyone by the same standard.
And that's what we do.
That's what we do, and
Mhm.
that's the mistake that we have been doing. We want every child to perform at their best, and it need not be same for child A versus child B. Now, as a teacher, It's your responsibility to find out what's the expectation for A and what's the expectation for B, and encourage them in that specific way.
Mm.
Otherwise, this problem, what you mentioned, is a very big problem. It'll keep on happening, and they don't realize that it will make their mental health worse, because as such they are feeling a bit isolated and a bit out of the place, and by being ridiculed by the teachers, or maybe ridiculed is a very strong word, but some sort of negativity from parents and teachers that you are not good enough, will make their mental health even worse.
And it has.
And
And you know, you mentioned not, it might be too strong what you said, but it is what it is. And that's the reality.
yeah,
I know a lot of young people that went to mainstream schools, young people with disabilities.
hmm
And when they left, mentally they were drained.
devastated.
They were.
Yeah.
They were. Many give up
Yeah.
on their futures. And we, as members of the community that advocate and provide support, we have our work cut out, because we have to bring them to that level for them to continue with their tertiary level education
Yes.
and be mentally prepared for that. Go ahead, Dr. Bansal.
No, I'm saying I feel very strongly for what you said. I think we are failing them
We are.
as a society or as a community. It's our failure, not theirs.
Definitely. And once we create, again, it goes back to that physical environment. Once we create that environment, enabling environment
Mhm.
for persons with disabilities, for them to be an equal human being and be productive, be independent, definitely that would translate to them having good mental health and maintain a good mental well-being. Dr. Mans,
Absolutely.
go ahead.
It should not be just judged by their academic achievement.
Definitely not.
This is what one point I want to say. You have to have the training and the skill to recognize what this person is going to be good at, and train them for that, instead of getting an A or A plus in an academic course. So again, a lot of introspection and a lot of research needs to be done, how to train our teachers and faculties to identify the capabilities and then lead them in the right direction.
Definitely. Dr. Mansell, we just have a few minutes left. Anything else you would like to share or leave with the listeners, the public, sorry, as it relates to mental health in the workplace? Any final tip for employees and employers
I
as we strive to support these individuals and create an environment where they can be productive?
I would say it's time that we throw the stigma against people with disability out of the window. This is my personal opinion. Everyone has some kind of a disability. A person who is greedy is being limited from using the money for the benefit of the people in the community or in the society is disabled, in my opinion.
Mm.
So everybody has one disability or other. It's time that we start talking about these disabilities in open. It's time that we start treating them as equals. It's time that we create a proper workplace environment and home environment where they feel welcome and where they feel that they can give their best and hence be a very important and appreciated part of the society. Thank you.
Excellent. Dr. Bansal, I want to thank you very much for sharing with the public once again on this very important topic, and that is mental health. And this time we look at it from the perspective of mental health in the workplace. I'll be back next time for another edition of Disability and You. But before I go, I just want to remind you that let us all unite to destigmatize mental health. Once it becomes normalized and we discuss it more, the discrimination that exists, the stigma that exists, will no longer be there. Until next time, Ganesh saying goodbye.
Thank you, Mr. Eli.